Healing isn't linear, but peace is worth the fight. This journey taught me a vital lesson. You cannot set yourself on fire to keep others warm. Family should be your sanctuary, not your burden. Today, I choose my daughter, my husband, and my own worth. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to join our community. It helps us share these truths with others who might be struggling in silence. Drop a comment below. Have you ever had to choose yourself over a toxic situation? Thank you for watching, stay strong, and I'll see you in the next story. Goodbye. It started when I was 25, fresh out of college, and landing my first big girl job at a marketing firm in Chicago. I remember staring at my first real paycheck like it was a golden ticket to my future. Then my phone buzzed. It was my mother, Victoria. Her voice didn't just crack, it shattered. "Claire, it's your father. It's a stroke. A small one, but the medical bills, the mortgage. They're talking about foreclosure, honey. We're going to lose everything." My heart didn't just sink, it plummeted. I didn't hesitate. I didn't ask to see the bills. What kind of daughter would I be if I let my parents sleep on the street? Victoria told me they needed $2,000 a month. "Don't tell your father, Thomas," she whispered. "He's too proud. He'd be humiliated if he knew his daughter was carrying him." I agreed. I felt like a hero. In reality, I was just a target. For the next 3 years, I lived like a college student while earning a six-figure salary. I lived in a tiny studio with a radiator that hissed like a snake, and a view of a brick wall. I skipped brunch with friends. I wore the same two blazers until the elbows were threadbare. Meanwhile, I'd scroll through Instagram and see my younger sister Ashley posing with a brand new designer tote. The caption, "Best mom ever, Victoria knew I needed some retail therapy after my breakup." I felt a twinge of confusion, but I buried it. Maybe it was a knockoff, I told myself. Maybe mom saved her grocery money. I was a master at lying to myself to protect the image of the woman I loved. By year 5, the $2,000 became $3,500. Victoria claimed Thomas needed specialized physical therapy and organic supplements not covered by insurance. Then it hit $4,500 because Ashley needed to find herself through an expensive influencer coaching program. Every time I tried to push back, Victoria would weaponize my guilt. "After everything we sacrificed for you, Claire, you're going to let your father suffer because you want a nicer apartment." When I met Ethan, I didn't tell him about the transfers. I was ashamed. He'd ask why we couldn't afford a down payment on a house despite our combined income. I'd make excuses about market volatility or saving for a rainy day, but Ethan was observant. After a Thanksgiving dinner at my parents' house, he sat me down in the car. "Claire, did you notice that Victoria spent 2 hours talking about Ashley's TikTok followers, but didn't even acknowledge your promotion to senior director, not even a good job?" I laughed it off, but the seed was planted. I started doing the math I had been avoiding for nearly a decade. $4,500 a month, 12 months, 9 years, $486,000. That wasn't just help. That was a house. That was a retirement. That was a life. And the most terrifying part, in 108 months of transfers, I realized I hadn't received a single thank you text. Not one. Because in Victoria's world, my labor wasn't a gift, it was an obligation. I was an ATM with a pulse, and the machine was starting to run out of cash. Everything changed on a rainy Thursday in October. I was 36 weeks pregnant, bone-tired, and heading home after a late strategy meeting. My mind was drifting between nursery colors and the $4,500 transfer I had just scheduled for the morning. I was at the intersection of 5th and Main. I had the green light. I remember thinking, almost home, almost safe. Then the world exploded. A heavy-duty pickup truck blew a red light at 50 miles per hour, slamming directly into my driver's side. The sound was deafening, the scream of twisting metal and the sickening pop of glass. My last thought before the darkness took me wasn't about the money or my career. It was a silent, desperate plea. "Please, not her. Take me, but let my baby be okay." While I was unconscious trapped in a mangled cage of steel, my husband Ethan was 2,000 miles away on a business trip. When he got the call from the hospital, he nearly collapsed. There were no flights for 6 hours. He was stranded, frantic and terrified. He did the only thing a desperate husband could do. He called my mother, Victoria. She lived exactly 15 minutes from the hospital. "Victoria, please," Ethan sobbed into the phone. "Claire's been in a horrific crash. She's in emergency surgery. They're delivering the baby right now. I can't get there. Please go to her. Don't let our daughter be alone." There was a pause on the line. But it wasn't a pause of shock or grief. In the background, Ethan heard it, the rhythmic electronic chiming of slot machines and the muffled chatter of a crowded floor. "Oh, Ethan." Victoria sighed, her voice sounding more annoyed than worried. "You know how Claire is. She always has these emergencies right when I'm busy. She probably just bumped her fender and is making a scene for attention." Ethan's voice went cold. "She's in the ICU, Victoria. Her lung collapsed. The baby is premature. Are you seriously at a casino right now?" "I'm out with my friends, Ethan. It's my one night to relax," she snapped. "Besides, Ashley's cat is stressed because she's away on her cruise and I promised to check on it. Claire is a grown woman. She'll be fine. Call me in the morning when things calm down." She hung up. She actually hung up on a man whose wife and child were hovering between life and death so she could pull a lever on a machine. I woke up 14 hours later to the smell of antiseptic and the dull roar of morphine. My chest felt like it was being crushed by a semi-truck. I couldn't speak because of the tube down my throat, but I looked at the nurse with pure terror. She took my hand. "Your daughter is alive, Claire. Lily is in the NICU. She's a fighter." I wept. But as the fog cleared, I realized something. My room was empty. No flowers, no mother sitting in the chair. When Ethan finally arrived, gray-faced and trembling, he told me everything. He told me about the casino. He told me about the cat. He told me that my mother, the woman I had given $486,000 to, couldn't be bothered to drive 15 minutes to hold my hand while I almost died. That was the moment the good daughter died. I reached for my phone with my one good hand, my fingers shaking. I logged into my banking app. I found the recurring transfers tab. I didn't hesitate. Delete, confirm, delete, confirm. For 9 years, I had kept their world spinning. But as I watched those scheduled payments vanish, I realized for the first time I wasn't their daughter. I was their insurance policy, and the policy had just been canceled. 3 hours after I severed the financial umbilical cord, the hospital room door opened. I expected a nurse, perhaps a well-meaning colleague. Instead, standing tall even at 78, with silver hair and eyes that missed nothing, was my grandfather Arthur. He was a retired judge, a man who had spent 40 years reading people from a bench, and his presence immediately shifted the atmosphere from sterile despair to something akin to an impending verdict. His voice, usually so steady, broke when he saw me. "Claire, my girl, I came as fast as I could." I burst into tears, the kind of raw, gut-wrenching sobs that only a parent can evoke. He crossed the room in 3 strides, taking my good hand. His grip was warm, solid, and utterly unlike the empty promises I'd been fed for years. "I'm here now," he said. "I'm here." It had been 4 years since I'd seen him. Victoria always had an excuse. "Grandpa's traveling. Grandpa's busy with his foundation. Grandpa doesn't really do family visits anymore." My voice, still rough from the intubation, barely a whisper, confessed. "Mom said you didn't want to see me." His jaw tightened. "And she told me the same thing about you, Claire." The years of subtle manipulation, of being deliberately isolated from a man who clearly cared, suddenly clicked into place. It was a cold, hard truth. Then Arthur revealed how he knew. "Ethan called me tonight," he said, his voice now laced with a steely resolve. "He told me what happened, what Victoria said, about the casino." Shame washed over me, but Arthur squeezed my hand. You don't apologize, Claire. You have nothing to apologize for. He reached into his coat and pulled out a thick manila folder worn at the edges, a familiar sight from his days on the bench. Claire, I need to tell you something. I've known for a while now about the money, the transfers, every month for 9 years. My stomach dropped. What? He opened the folder. Inside were my bank statements. My name, my account, every single $4,500 transaction meticulously documented. I have my ways, he said, a ghost of a smile playing on his lips. Old habits from the bench. I knew something was wrong, so I looked. Why didn't you say anything? I asked, my voice barely a croak. Arthur paused, his gaze distant, burdened with regret. Because I made the same mistake with your grandmother. I saw problems in our family and stayed silent, hoping they'd fix themselves. She died before I could make things right. I thought foolishly that if I gave Victoria enough rope, she might choose to do better on her own, that a mother's love would eventually win out. His jaw hardened. Instead, she used that rope to tie you down for 9 years. She failed, and I won't make the same mistake twice. He pulled out another sheet, an email chain. 3 years ago, Victoria came to me. She wanted me to update my will, leave everything to Ashley. Her argument was that you already have a rich husband and don't need the help. Arthur's laugh was bitter. Meanwhile, you were working 60-hour weeks and sending her enough money to buy a small house. I didn't change the will then. I wanted to see what she would do. But tonight, Claire, she showed me exactly who she is. Just as Arthur finished, the door swung open again. It wasn't a nurse. It was Thomas, my father. His eyes were red-rimmed, his face etched with a pain I'd rarely seen. I called him. Thomas said, his voice barely audible. I couldn't stay silent anymore. His trembling admission was the final devastating piece of the puzzle. The truth had finally come to light, brought by the two men who had silently watched the woman they loved exploit me for years. Before my father Thomas could even find the words to explain himself, the heavy door swung open again. The scent hit me first, a heavy, expensive perfume that Victoria only wore for special occasions. She walked in wearing a silk blouse and full makeup, looking as if she had just stepped out of a gala, rather than coming to visit a dying daughter. I learned later that Grandpa Arthur had called her at 2 a.m. He had told her in a voice like ice, "Your daughter is in the ICU, and I know exactly where you were tonight. I know everything." Victoria didn't rush here because she was worried about me. She rushed here because she was worried about her inheritance. This wasn't a rescue mission, it was damage control. She saw Arthur standing there, folder in hand, and her expression flickered a split second of pure calculation. Then the performance began. Her face crumpled into a mask of maternal agony. She rushed to my bedside, her hands fluttering like nervous birds. "Claire, my baby." I came as soon as I heard. I've been driving for hours. The traffic was horrific. I was nearly out of my mind with worry. I glanced at the digital clock on the wall. 3:47 a.m. The accident happened at 9:47 p.m. She lived 15 minutes away. "Victoria." Arthur's voice cut through her performance like a blade. "You arrived at 4 o'clock in the morning. Where were you 6 hours ago when Ethan was begging for your help?" Victoria's hand stopped inches from my face. She let out a soft, rehearsed sob. "I told you, Dad, I was trapped in traffic. My phone died. It was a nightmare." "You were at the Desert Rose Casino," Thomas said quietly from the corner. His voice was trembling, but for the first time in my life, he didn't look away. "I tracked your phone, Victoria. I saw the transaction you made at the ATM on the casino floor while Claire was in surgery." The room went deathly silent. Victoria's face went pale, then a sharp, ugly red. The grieving mother mask shattered, and the woman underneath, cold, sharp, and dangerous, emerged. She let out a short, harsh laugh. "Robert, how dare you track me? I was out with friends. Am I not allowed to have a life just because Claire is having another moment?" A moment. Arthur stepped forward, holding up a bank statement. Is this $4,500 monthly payment a moment? Victoria. Because I've counted 108 of them. Nearly $500,000 that this girl earned while you told me she was too selfish to help with her father's medical bills. Victoria's eyes darted to the folder, then back to me. She didn't deny it. Instead, she doubled down. She looked at me, her eyes pleading now, but with greed, not love. Claire, honey, you understand. Ethan makes so much money. You don't need it. But Ashley, she's struggling. I was just trying to balance things out for the family. By lying to me, I croaked, the pain in my chest finally outweighed by the clarity in my mind. By letting me believe Dad was dying so I'd pay for your blackjack games by leaving Lily alone in the NICU while you pulled a slot machine lever. I looked her dead in the eyes. Don't look at me for help, Mom. I'm not your ATM anymore. I'm not even your daughter. Victoria opened her mouth to scream, to manipulate, to play the victim, but Arthur held up a hand. Linda, I'm meeting with my attorney tomorrow morning. I'm changing the will. Every cent that was intended for you is going into a trust for Lily. Victoria's scream of, "You can't do that!" echoed through the ICU hallway as the nurses rushed in to escort her out. As she was dragged away, still shouting about how ungrateful I was, I felt a weight lift off my soul. The performance was over, the theater was empty, and for the first time in 9 years I could finally breathe. 6 weeks passed, and the rhythm of my life shifted. The constant anxiety that had lived in my chest for 9 years began to dissolve, replaced by the soft breathing of Lily in her bassinet. I hadn't sent a single dollar. For the first time, my bank account was a reflection of my hard work, not a leaking bucket. I decided to hold a small welcome home brunch. I needed closure. I invited Thomas, Arthur, and despite my gut feeling, Victoria and Ashley. I wanted to see if the loss of their ATM had triggered any real reflection. Victoria arrived in a whirlwind of fake smiles, acting like the doting grandmother for the benefit of my friends and colleagues. But the mask slipped when she thought no one was looking. I slipped into the kitchen for more coffee and froze. The wireless microphone from the kids' karaoke set was sitting on the counter, and it was live. Through the speakers on the patio, Victoria's voice boomed crystal clear for every guest to hear. She was cornering Grandpa Arthur near the window. "Dad, you're being dramatic," Victoria hissed, her voice amplified across the yard. "Claire is fine. She has Ethan. Ashley is the one who's actually struggling. Just tweak the will. Claire doesn't need that inheritance, she's already had her share. It's only fair." The entire party went silent. Conversations died mid-sentence. 20 people watched as Victoria, oblivious, continued to lobby for a dead man's money at her granddaughter's celebration. I walked out onto the patio, the silence ringing in my ears. "Actually, Mom," I said, my voice steady, "I think I've had more than my share of lies." Victoria spun around, her face turning a sickly shade of white as she realized the microphone was on. "I gave you 486,000 chances to be a mother," I told her as our friends looked on in shock. "And you traded every single one of them for a seat at a blackjack table. You didn't come when I almost died, and you're still trying to take from me while I'm holding my miracle." Arthur stepped forward, his face like stone. "It's done, Victoria. The attorney filed the trust papers this morning. You've had your last payout." As Ethan escorted a screaming Victoria and a pouting Ashley to the door, I didn't feel the old familiar guilt. I felt light. My name is Claire, and I finally learned that family isn't about who shares your blood, it's about who shares your burden. I finally found my peace, and it didn't cost me a cent. I'm Claire, and 2 months ago I woke up in a hospital bed to a devastating truth. My newborn daughter Lily was being cared for by a stranger because my own mother chose a casino night over her grandchild's life. For 9 years, I secretly wired my parents $4,500 every month, nearly $500,000 total. Not once did they say thank you. Even as I lay in the ER with a punctured lung, my mother told my husband I was exaggerating. But the moment I canceled those transfers, the real war began. Before I tell you how my grandfather's secret folder changed everything, Please like and subscribe to support the channel. Drop a comment below. Where in the world are you watching from, and what time is it there? Now let's go back to where the lies started.